Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Shout out to Senhor Canga, bro. Thank you so much. Muito obrigado, irmão. And poder preto. Viva Africa. My people, um, a lot of us like to sit up and talk about what, and we'll say Africans, we'll just say, we'll just say Africans, and them Africans don't like us. And that's, we'll say stuff like this. But I talked to you about before. I made mention of how it is that a lot of the um, diaspora and black nationalities fighting really um, is really gender based, because you see the sistren, though they may disagree with each other, still have this common thread, and that common thread is we gonna get these ninjas, we're gonna get this money out these ninjas, and so we're gonna get these resources, and we're not gonna do the same work that the men do to get the same resources. We're gonna get it from the men by virtue of us being women, whether we are Trinidadian, Jamaican, Nigerian, Bajan, American, South African, Kenyan. We're seeing this play out, and that's part of why it is that I'm having these that I do these recordings that I do, and then I upload. You're going to hear me this morning preaching to you while I'm also getting everything ready. Look, my people, my race, and I'm mostly talking to the bros in this one, but the sisters can learn if they choose to. They always can learn if they choose to learn. You got to understand that what AC has been saying to us in a nutshell is that the black woman, globally speaking, is on or has a preference for divesting. All of them ain't gonna do it. Most women are gonna wind up with men of their own race and their own people, oftentimes by virtue of proximity alone, if nothing else. But nonetheless, while that is going to be the case, it is the black woman that does not even show much of a preference for her own men, while other women do, and then she gets mad at other women for showing the preference for her own men. So she pushes the men away if they belong to her race, i.e., us, and then gets mad when other women turn around and not only have an interest, but will actually actively show this interest and come trying to get these brothers. Now they pissed. Now they mad. Mad because somebody else came along and showed that this guy was worth something. What do sisters generally say, and how do they generally act about it? Oh, we don't do that. You need to sit back and let that man come to you. And they done sat up here and taught these men not to go to anybody. Who do you think taught me not to make approaches? I'm going to tell you now, white women kind of did, just a little bit. They did. Hell, even Asian women did. If they were born and raised in the States, they did too. I pretty much saw it, and I thought this was something that was worldwide. That was one of the issues I had. I just assumed that this was something that was pretty much global, that wherever you went, it was going to be like this. That if they're cute, they're uninterested. That's honestly what I thought. And then I got older and found out that that general pattern was not really the case. That was just what we were seeing in the West. That if they're actually nice to look at, then they're uninterested. I just took for granted that this was something that was going on all over the world. It's something that the West Tunisians taught me. The white, the black, the Asian, pretty much across the board. If they're nice to look at, they got attitude. But I'm going to tell you this too, though. Emma Ansa got on the African Diasporan News Channel and made remarks about, and that's Phil Scott's channel, and she made remarks about, so what if you do see these Kenyan women with these mzungu men? What are you African American men looking for when you go to Kenya? Wait a minute, hold up. See, first it was passport bros won't go to Africa. And even Austin Holloman just recently wrongly said that passport bros won't go to Africa. I stated years ago that that had more to do with the distance than it did with the fact that it's Africa. But Emma Ansa was sitting up here trying to act like this is apples and apples anyway, or oranges and oranges. Emma Ansa didn't want to fess up to the fact that no, this is not apples and apples or oranges and oranges. It's apples and oranges. That's the comparison. She's making a comparison where she should have been making a contrast. If a brother is ticked off at seeing nice looking Kenyan women with these mzungu, then his problem is that he's too concerned, he's too invested, he's too pro-black. She ain't got a motherfucking thing to say about it, because we already know that when sisters get with non-black men, period, white or otherwise, it don't turn out too well. The non-black men that would treat them well are the ones they don't want. They ain't trying to get that man from Indonesia. They ain't trying to get that man from Malaysia or that Filipino man. Wouldn't hardly say two words to these men. But then you turn around and see them trying to get with the Chinese, the Korean, the one that don't like black folks, the Arab, the Indian, the Northern Indian at that, the Pakistani. You don't see them trying to go to Sri Lanka where they're not thinking much about us, good or bad. They don't even go for guys that are neutral about black folks in general. They don't even do that. If you want sisters to want you, you got to be the guy that doesn't want them. That's the thing about sisters, and that's true whether you're talking about the continental African, from what we're beginning to see. Kenya seems to be a hotspot for that divesting BS. And another thing I want to point out, women on the continent have been about that swirling and divesting long before there was something called the passport bro in the black community. Long before that. I remember in the 90s, when I was partying with Africans, some of the women were like, they had these white boyfriends. And I wanted to know, what the hell was that about? See, what's going on is that women are sitting up here and they're saying, sisters are saying that black men feel a particular way about black women, and they're sitting up here really, in all honesty, feeling this way about themselves, and then they get with these white dudes when they can get them, and these white dudes tell them that that's how they feel. Calling them all kinds of monkeys, talking about they too dark, never introducing the women to their families, all that dumb stuff. Wongo Zalalam, who does appearances for the African Diasporan News Channel, actually covered this, but Emma Ansa wants to sit up and try to correct the black man. There's nothing to correct black men for except the fact that we're too easy. Nothing else. Manosphere Hall of Fame has said it himself. We uphold a lot of this gynocentrism and matriarchy and feminism and misandry ourselves. Abdullah Ibn Babi, salam alaikum, brother, shout out to him, one of my day ones, actually talked about how it is that black male relatives of these women, he has agreed with me, saying the black male relatives of these women will oftentimes be the ones that get in the way. And he and I are Muslim. We don't have a problem with defending Muslim women if their behavior ain't the problem. But we're talking about something else altogether different. We got got men that, not just because they love women, but also because they undervalue men that are going to sit up and start raising standards. And I'm saying this as a Muslim man who believes that the job of the male relative of a woman is to vet the male suitors of that particular woman. I believe that that's what that's what we're supposed to do. And all this time I thought that, for years I really just took for granted that women were difficult. And they are. But I've also come to understand that they're not difficult for bad men. And that's what the men have to be there for. The male relatives got to be there because they have an interest in weeding out the bad, no good ninjas. At the very least, that is the case. Even now, with black men being a little bit too gynocentric and matriarchal and feminist and even misandrous to a certain extent, and buying into a lot of this bull about what men aren't worth, even then, a lot of these men do have an interest in which because of which they will weed out bad men they can identify as being bad, as being no good nigga bums. They can say, no, this dude is a bum. Leave him be. At least they would do that. Meanwhile, amongst black folks in general, and certainly amongst those of us in North America, you got a lot of women that have an active interest against their own brothers and sons finding good women. I guess what I'm getting at is that this is another example of why it is that we need certain double standards, why double standards we have that seem unfair to sisters are actually correct. And the only thing that this African-American man to whom Emma Ansa is referring did wrong in the video was that he cared. That's what he did wrong. He's like, okay, I'm seeing him out here with these mzungu. And he cared. He went to Africa, and this is what he saw. So when everybody was talking about how brothers don't go to Africa, and even Austin Holloman was saying that brothers don't really want African women like that. The thing is that when brothers do go, what are they seeing? Well, if they go to Kenya, they're going to see these divestors, these swirlers. They're going to see these Brad worshipers. Going to Uganda, same thing. So what Emma Ansa's doing is she's trying to act as though it really doesn't matter what the women over there choose, when in fact, no, it matters to brothers that do care. It matters to brothers that do exactly what black folks, including black women, tell brothers that we should be doing, going to the motherland and giving sisters from the continent the right of first refusal. And here's the other thing. Brothers are talking about this in Kenya. They're not going to Ethiopia and reporting on this in the same numbers, even though some guys have said that they've seen it. But brothers aren't jumping over Kenya to go into Ethiopia and then finding out that those women are busy chasing down non-black men. They're going into Kenya where the folks are still what we would call Bantu and finding that they're chasing after Brad. That they're giving Brad the preference. That's what's going on right now at this point. So, most of us would say that the Kenyans are more similar to us than folks from Ethiopia. Even if you're Pan-Africanist, you might say that you can see more similarity. I'm not really sure genetically how that would look on a genome map, but you get the idea. Because we're West and Central African. But what's going to happen is that you're going to begin to see in the end how it is that sisters are simply giving preferences to the men that look down on our race the most. And then they're backing each other up. This American so-called Pan-Africanist woman, Emma Ansa, is sitting up and back. No, that man was right in his observation. He was wrong for caring, but he was right in his observation. Unless he made it up. What he gave was an observation. He's either telling the truth or he's lying. And if he is telling the truth, then where the hell does that come from? I didn't think there was going to be a part 4 of this. But shout out to Senhor Canga, there is. And Manosphere Hall of Fame has pointed something out to me too. And I have noticed this. In the 80s, brothers, especially the darkest of us, should have been the first ones to say, nope, never mind. Although travel back then was a hell of a lot different than what it is now. But brothers should have been the first to say, hell no, never mind. In the 90s, should have been lighter-skinned brothers that should have been the first to say, nope, never mind. And now it's just brothers in general that need to say, no, we're not going after Keisha. We're not going after Sapphire. Not Boom Shika, not Bonquisha, not Sophista Ratchet Sapphire. Because sisters have been given hell to brothers for various things. For height, complexion. Turn around and give a mzungu a pass for the same things. But brothers are highly scrutinized. Height, complexion I've already mentioned. Social class, you ain't hood enough, or you ain't got enough money. Things that are beyond the control of the guy. And then when it is something that's within the control of the guy, it's because of things that he's supposed to do, like have some demeanor about himself and not be a hood nigga stereotype. These are the things that sisters have been holding against us. And so in all honesty, the thug has the reason to sit up and say, no, I'm not going after her no more. Not approaching her anymore, even though he's likely to have some kind of success. Not all of them do. But the point is that in order for him to have success with her, he has to be a thug. So she's pretty much saying it's because you were on your way to the graveyard or the cell block that you have a shot, that I'm going to give you some motion. So he has a right to look at her and say, no, never mind. Especially if he wants to get out of that life. If you're a black man and you into that thug shit for whatever reason, especially if you're just into that to try to get by and make ends meet, you really want to leave that stuff alone as soon as you can. Guess what the hell you're going to have to do and give up when you decide to get out that life? You're going to have to give up that sister. And you know why you're going to have to give up that sister? Because that sister's going to be trying to keep you in that lifestyle. The minute you have to go through a transition in which you don't have that same fast money you had before, if you ever had it to begin with, the minute it comes down to that, she's going to be all on your ass. We don't have this. What about that? I'm not going through this shit, not even for 1 month with you. And then, what about my kids? What you mean, what about they're your kids? You and the dad figured out, because you know, even thugs oftentimes are told to be somebody's stepdad. So you see where this is leading. You see where this is going. Additionally, Betty Emanuel is the social worker in Sweden to whom Wonga Zalalam referred in her video. And she's covered it twice. See, we're not the same because Betty Emanuel had to tell these women, and she even specified the women of East Africa, but I mean, hell, West African women are going through it too. She had to specify to them, stop dealing with these mzungu. This is not the way out of poverty. Oh, out of poverty, huh? So that's what it came down to the whole time anyway. So she had to tell them that you're going to go through abuse because these guys that are willing to deal with you got underlying issues in the first place. That's pretty much what she had to tell them. And that's a very bitter pill for them to have to swallow, but that's exactly how the hell sisters in North America and in the continent have been toward brothers. we'll deal with you. Well, we're going to bring to you our issues. We would, if we couldn't bring these issues to you, we wouldn't deal with you. We might hide them and tuck them away from that white man. But we're going to bring them full force to you. We're bringing you the baggage. That's who we are. The brutal honesty of them tells you a lot right then and there. Like that woman that lost a little bit of weight and then cheated on her husband and let him catch her. And then the affair partner didn't want nothing to do with her, but she couldn't go back to the husband either. And she even said, if I had been smaller when my husband and I met in high school, he probably would have never been able to get me. She sits up and says that that's her mindset. She tells you that. So we're not the same. We need to leave sisters alone. But they ain't got a mother cuss word thing to say about the pro-black men that are still trying to get at them and trying to keep the black nuclear family going. They ain't got nothing to say about these men or to these men. They shouldn't, but that's exactly what the hell happened. Emma Ansa got up on the African Diasporan News Channel working for Phil Scott, who himself had to leave a sister for cheating and then marry a really pale, white-adjacent Mexicana. Or Chicana. I'm not blaming him because he did that. That's what he had to do to not be cheated on. No, he could not marry a sister that's attractive and not be cheated on, and that's not his fault. But Emma Ansa got up on his channel and told a pro-black man who cares where sisters wind up, he ain't got nothing to say about it. And what are y'all really looking for when you go to Africa? Edward Allen Anderson said this a long time ago. If you did everything they told you to do, they still gonna find a problem with it. Emma Ansa, based on the channel for whom she works, should have gotten up there and said, no, he is right. Why are they getting with the mzungu? There are other African men they could get. What is it with the mzungu? So why do they want specifically that man that looks like the one that is responsible for the impoverishment of the former colonies in the first fothermucking place? What's up with that? Why? That's what she should have said if she had this race loyalty that we see. See, when brothers get with these white women, they may or may not get in trouble. And I do say, brothers, leave them white women alone, they'll get you in trouble. I tell you that. I forgot the name of that woman that got Jonathan Majors in trouble. Her dad's Persian. He ain't white enough for other white people, but she got him in trouble. And the system went with it. They went right along with it. Yeah, you know, that nigga was running away from her instead of letting her hit him. All kinds of shit. You saw what the hell they did to their own man. Johnny Depp almost didn't win that case. I think he lost in the UK. And then he's nice enough to sit up and say, I'm not going to enforce the collection. I just wanted to prove a point. No, ninja. Take that bitch to the cleaners. Make her ass pay and then turn around and make Hollywood whitelist her ass so she can't find any work. Wipe her the uck out. It's not fair until her ass is out there homeless, holding up signs, I'll act for food. That's what they do with their own. So I tell you, brothers, yeah, man, that Becky will get your ass in trouble. And she'll laugh about that shit too. It's funny to her. She'll get your ass in trouble. But you know why I tell you still go ahead and leave sisters alone? Same reason AC does. She'll get your ass in trouble too. False accusations are a thing that await you if you are messing with a Western woman, period. And if you're messing with a sister, period. Even if she ain't Western. She gonna tell somebody something about you to get them ready to whip your ass. That's what's gonna wind up being the case. You get with a sister, that's happening. Somebody's going to hear some bad shit about you, and it's not going to be true because that's how they're taught to roll. My closest friend in the States, let's just call him Brother Brown. You know who you are. Shout out to you. Assalamu alaikum. had to go through this. He put his wife through nursing school. She later was on the phone with some of her lady relatives talking about the bum that he is, and he ain't never been a bum a day in his life. She went through nursing school and is now a nurse making nurse salary because of him, but she told some other women before they divorced, and they did divorce, they ain't together no more, that he a bum. Had some police officer's phone number in her purse where he could find it. Straight up low life sugarnit. Yeah, friend of mine had to deal with this too. Sisters will get you in trouble in one way or another. They're going to say something about you that isn't true to somebody else. So it is not the same. Brothers need to be leaving sisters alone, not making approaches. And no, sisters ain't got a damn thing to say to the pro-black man. They shouldn't have a damn thing to say to the pro-black men that still want black men and black women to be together. I would have loved to see the black family be strong and stay together, but it was not an option. And I lost interest. My brother's married to a black woman, and she loves him. Treats him very well, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad that my parents had the marriage they have. I cannot thank Allah enough for the blessings that He has put on my family with the marriages. I can't thank Him enough for that. And my son seems to be happy in the beginning of his marriage. So I'm very, I cannot describe the gratitude that I have. And I'm sure that that's not even fully enough. I thank Allah for this again and again. And I want this for you too, but I also understand that this is very unrealistic for me to expect for you. Could it happen? God can do it. And you certainly can ask God for that, but it's going to also involve some women that are going to appreciate this if God gives it to them too. And right now, that's just not the sistren. They will not show appreciation for a black man if God gives them one. They don't even want a black man until they need snow shoveled. I said shows, my bad. Until they need some snow shoveled. Appliances fixed or maintained, heavy shit moved around. They don't even think about us until it comes down to this stuff. They still, even when we withdraw our presence, they're not capable of appreciating us. That's the white woman with her man, and that's the black woman with us. So while I tell you, yeah, leave that wide alone too, I'll also say leave alone the Chinese woman that's raised in the US or Canada. Leave her alone too. You can't mess with an Ali Wong. You can't, I'll tell you that. I've said that before, but understand too though, see, that white woman may or may not get you in trouble. You got black men that have married white women that have not called the police on them and lied on them and tried to get them in trouble. That has happened before. Only interracial marriage I've heard of where it's a sister with a white man that hadn't gotten her in trouble has pretty much been Alfred Woodard, whose husband's name we don't know and can't remember. And that chick that was on one of those talk shows, I guess it was The View, I forgot her name too. And her husband, who's blue collar, think he's I forgot what he, a plumber or something. Financially speaking, she's carrying him. These are the ones that ain't got them in trouble. And here's why I sit up and I tell you that even that's, you can see the hypocrisy in that, because when they have a controversy and their men don't jump up on a microphone and come defend them, they don't have a damn thing to say about those men. But let it be a brother married to them. Oh, you ain't stepping up and defending her. What's wrong with you? Even if these men don't have microphones, that's what it would have been. She should have married you no way. You ain't nobody. And now you won't even defend her, even though he just would not have had a microphone. You can see the hypocrisy in all of this. And also Serena Williams. Her husband has not gotten her into trouble, but he doesn't defend her either. With his microphone, he don't say a damn thing. And that man he has access to put some things out there. When the tennis league was drug testing her at random times, more than they drug tested any other tennis player, he didn't say a fothermucking thing about it. She would get home and find them waiting at her gate a few times within a month. This is the random drug test that we're allowed to do. And they're allowed to. But they didn't do that to the white tennis players. Not like that. He didn't say a fothermucking thing. Somebody stole a cell phone. She went out and got it. He ain't say a fothermucking thing. Granted, it's a cell phone. He's Alexis Ohanian. He could buy her another one. She could buy another one. But she said, no, let me go and get it. She didn't curse him or anything. And the way that they even got together in the first fothermucking place explains to me why her dad would not be at the wedding, even if he loves her. Because she was pregnant when they married. That means she gave up the pussy before they were married. But she never did that with none of the black men she dated, and they cheated for it. She broke up with him and then got with this white dude and then gave him the pussy before they got married and wound up pregnant, so they got married. And she knows, as a sister, deep down somewhere, she knows that he's lucky. She's lucky that he showed up for the wedding and didn't just leave her at the altar or something, or call a reason to break it off or whatever. She knows that because he was always going to be under pressure to bounce at any particular time. And she had to make more money than him for him to stick around. And I hate to speculate on the lives of celebrities like this, but we can see the hypocrisy. But even in a case like this, in a few cases where these white dudes ain't gotten sisters in trouble per se, in these few cases that are available for all of us to see, the fact remains that every day, go to Only Logical's channel, hell, Betty Emanuel, and you're going to find all these stories, horror stories of these sisters who got with these Wyatts, and they're being called all kinds of monkeys and gorillas and brainless and told they're too dark and mistreated and eventually even hit. And if it doesn't stop at just the hitting, then it goes on until somebody ain't there no more. That's what winds up being the case. And what I'm saying is that Wyatt man is far more dangerous to the sisters than the Wyatt woman is to brothers on average. And she's probably the most dangerous woman to us outside of the sister. And yet and still, that Wyatt man is far more dangerous to sisters, and the sistren don't have the decency to admit that they can see this shit. Emma Ansa's wrong. Betty Emanuel is right. Wonga Zalalam is right. I'm not saying this because it matters to me what these sisters are doing. I'm happily married. My son is happily married. My parents are still alive and happily married and together, and I'm grateful for this. My brother is happily married. So I'm not saying this because of my position. I'm saying this because, frankly, you gentlemen deserve to see exactly what the hell is right and just, and that is you having options and sisters not having them. Not because of some kind of vengeance. My motive is not necessarily vengeance. When I say this, I'm already trained to understand and forgive sisters for not picking me. That's okay. I'm not going to forgive them for the lies and the deception. But it is because they also went into starting to try to do these things, these disrespectful things to brothers across the board, that I'm starting to now say, okay, you know what? No, shuck that fit. No, screw that. I'm not playing with y'all. That's why I'm starting to say this to them. Or really saying to you, no. You have every right to look at them like, why are you with this mzungu? Because you know he's going to kick your ass. I'm not going to approach you. I shouldn't have to. But why are you with him? Because
That's suicide. Why are you with this white adjacent Arab? Why are you with this Indian, this northern Indian at that? White adjacent northern Indian or Pakistani? Why are you with this Chinese or this Korean? They're not going to treat you equally. They're not going to value you. They don't, eventually they stop even seeing you as a woman. They start looking at black women the way that they would look at a trans woman if they found out that she was actually trans and was not born a woman. After they done dug out a couple of times, or him out, or shim out, or whatever the pronoun's supposed to be. That kind of disgust, that is the way that these men are acting when they, after enough time of being with these black women, they're like, ugh. That's the violence they begin to show to them. And in all honesty, a lot of times they show that the only reason they're even with these sisters, and they show this by the way they act, they show that the only reason they're with these sisters is because white women are giving them the shit. And they're just admitting it. That's one of the reasons why a lot of them wind up with Asian women. The white nationalists aren't even getting with white women anymore. They've been given so much difficulty in trying to do it that they've lost interest in white women. They're like, nope, we'll go for the Asian woman or the Indian woman. You know, the ones that are white adjacent and really want to be white, we'll give them a shot. They'll do that. And these women are sitting up here talking about, it's funny because I've seen how some of these men are when they're with just these white men, when they're with just Asian women. Especially if she's Southeast Asian, Filipino or something. I've seen how they are. And when they get with them, sometimes they do things that are not really that polite and rather mean, and they make sure that they're seen on camera doing it. I've seen this happen. And then sisters come along and say, oh, the white men are so nice and kind and loving. And they're not. How do I know? Because I've seen what they do and what they will say when they are with women that are just not white, that are what they would call yellow or brown or bronze or something. I've seen how they act with these women. What the hell you think they gonna do to your black ass? And then we start hearing the stories, and we can go to Only Logical's channel every day, and some days 2 and 3 times a day, and find more and more and more and more stories. They're not running out. I'm like, when is this gonna stop? I don't mean when is he going to stop talking about it. What I mean is when is he going to not find cases? How does he even know where to look? But whatever happens, he's not making the stories up. I've gone and looked myself. He ain't making them up. That means he finds there's a source or sources to which he goes and finds them. And there are always new stories in there. We got to wait for the next Jonathan Majors. And it might be a Brian Banks instead of Jonathan Majors. In other words, we got to wait for the next story. And truth be told, brothers ain't necessarily brothers are not in more danger. I realize this. We're not in more danger dealing with white women than we are dealing with sisters, or not being with anybody for that matter. Because look what happened to that guy in Louisiana that played for LSU. Blamed for a car accident that happened before he even got there. He drove past the accident, and now that man is dead by his own hand, and we're finding out that he was innocent the whole damn time. But he was going to have to stand in front of a jury, and he had no hope of fighting that and beating that. If he had stayed alive, I don't think that this evidence would have ever even come out. I don't think so. I don't think he would have gone to prison for a little while and then the evidence comes out and then he walks out later on. And if so, why wait a few months behind bars? For what? I'm not saying he should have killed himself. I'm saying he should have never had to face that goddamn problem in the first place because the accident happened before he got to the mother cuss word scene. Somehow it was put on him. 2 other cars. How the hell did he get blamed for this? And this had nothing to do with any woman. This had to do with him just living in a white country. Just that. I don't want you guys to stop and think about that. The trouble that you are in, the danger that you face as black men, does not decrease necessarily because you don't. It doesn't decrease because you decide you're gonna stay by yourself once you're high profile. It decreases if you're invisible to people in general. Yeah, then it does. But that just means that there's some other brother that's out there getting the attention that would have otherwise been directed at you. That's all that means. For you gentlemen, yeah, the solution is still reblactration, fitting to guck out this fothermucker. And your future, your legacy is not going to be in the arms or up in between the legs and the thighs and the birth canals of sisters because deep down she's looking for a bride. That's whether she's American or Kenyan or South African. And I already know that quite a few West African women got that same mindset. They believe that that massa, that mzungu is better than you. And I got problems with that mindset. Because what that tells you, here's what that says. That tells you that not only is there a lack of morality in their choices in men, it tells you that there is an amorality or an anti-morality in their choices in men. What they're saying is that the man that won by weapons design and deception, which they would have never given you credit for, by the way. If you had dominated the planet through the same means, sisters would not have respected you. How do we know? Because the white woman ain't respecting her man no more for doing that. She can't respect her man. That's why she tells her man, "You're going to take care of me, and then you're going to sit in the corner and watch while I screw this black guy." That's why her attitude is like that. I'm not saying she's better, but the point is that we already know that that's what that's like. That's what that would have resulted in. So we got sisters sitting up here looking at the one that didn't really win, but rather just deceived and weapons designed his way to the top. And is now sitting up and saying, because he won, even though there was no contest in the beginning, they're saying because he won, I want him. Sisters, and even I've heard a man that was into other men sit up and say, well, if this man can beat you up and kick your behind, I don't want you, I want him. And granted, I understand why women would not want a man that's always in danger of being annihilated. I can somewhat understand that, somewhat. As long as they can understand why a man would look at women and make the same judgment and have the same standards. Well, you can't always be in danger of getting your ass kicked. You can't be one of the women that's always going to be out there fighting other women and losing. But you know, women don't understand that. Especially sisters. But what I'm saying is that the sisters will look at the man that didn't really win anything, or they'll pretty much look and say, well, it's really just about brute strength, and that's all it stops at brute strength. It ends there. Just brute strength is enough. I'm going to judge you, black man, by the law of the jungle. But even when that mzungu can't win on brute strength, I'm going to go ahead and respect him. Excuse me? And any man that wants to be like the mzungu, Pretty much not because a mzungu respects him. Oh no, you think the Arab man ain't getting trampled by the white man? Bruh, come on. But she'll be like, well, since he's a co-opted white supremacy, he has a chance too. That's what you're dealing with. He ain't got to win. He just has to co-opt white supremacy, and now he's considered better than you. And that's the end of it. And so, with all of that being said, let me go ahead and point out that at this point, we're going to have to start looking at these women that are pro-black. Even if you're a man and you're pro-black, you're going to have to start looking sideways at some of these women that are pro-black. They're going to have to start being pro-black patriarchy. We're going to start realizing that if that a woman that is not pro-black patriarchy ain't pro-black. We're going to start realizing that. That's how we're going to have to start seeing it. Are you pro-black patriarchy? You don't have to be okay with a no-good bum corner hugging Negro running the community. You don't have to be okay with that. But are you okay with the responsible Urkel type black men calling shots in the community? Are you all right with that? No? Fuck the shuck up. You ain't pro-black. We're going to have to start looking at women like Emma Ansa and say, no, we now question your pro-blackness. Because that man was pro-black. And what did you do? You questioned the pro-blackness of not only him, but the other African-American men or other diasporan men that go back to Africa trying to find someone, questioning what they're looking for in the first place. What you looking for? You going to compare that man to Jay Rello. Emma, you're stupid. The hell are you thinking? Do you know about passport bros? I'm saying this as a man that's not even a passport bro. I'm SYSBN. But do you know about passport bros? Austin has made the mistake of thinking that black men just don't want African women. When the fact remains that most guys actually see it the way he does. Most have a preference for black women. But I have stated this years ago, and I guess more time has gone by than what I realized and what I felt and what I was conscious of. I've stated years ago that black women are training black men to not want them anymore with their nasty, filthy, stank, funky, up attitudes. And I was surprised at that time that I said it at how far along this had gotten. And this was what? 2022 and 2023 I said this was going to happen. I think I even said it in 2021. We're now in 2025. So what Austin thought was the case is actually more so still in the making than it is actually the case right now. But it is still a process. And this is not a process that this is not something that's been going on for decades and decades. It's not the case. This is something that has been in the making in recent years because we men have come to realize what these sisters are doing. Don't believe me? Ask Danica Marie. That's exactly how she describes it. She'll tell you, we've been playing these games. Sisters been doing this stuff. Brothers are now figuring it out. That's why a man named Cordario, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you his whole name. That's not his real name anyway, but on Facebook, he's known as Cordario. You'll find his last name on Facebook. You'll find his Facebook last name if you go looking for him. He will tell you he's got a mestiza Colombian wife. And he will tell you, when I say I like women with natural hair, I don't mean this, and he'll put up pictures of women with 4C hair. He has learned from black women to not want black women anymore. He's from the Gulf Coast. He didn't start off that way. I know who he is. I'm telling you, gentlemen, that at the end of it all, bros have wanted sisters, for the most part, But by the same token, we're being trained. Sisters are training us to not want them no more, and it's working. It would have worked on me if I hadn't met my current wife, specifically the way that I did, and found out she was interested through some other means. And as it is, I can tell you now, as it is, yes, had she been West African, she would not have stood a chance. And that's not because of the difference in the looks per se, but it's because of what they think about the difference in the looks. She would not have stood a chance. She was really, honestly, my wife has been neutral about my phenotype. She's looked at me specifically, just me. She doesn't like me more because I'm lighter skinned, and she wouldn't like me less if I was darker. And I've been darker before, and she said the tan looks good, but she didn't like me more because of the tan I got. She doesn't like me more or less when I've let my hair grow back. She likes the fact that I have hair. So I could honestly say that there was this neutrality, so to speak. That wasn't the case of dealing with women of my own particular lineage within the black race. There was no neutrality. I was going to be treated differently. End of. And they even said it. I was told this back in 2001. I was never going to get equal treatment. And a lot of times, even East African women weren't going to necessarily treat me the same. Had I not met her in the set of circumstances I did, man, I'm telling you, I know exactly where I would have wound up marrying, if I wound up marrying at all, and that would have been in Southeast Asia. I was being taught, I was being trained, and there was a change going on in my soul, in my very preference in women. There was a change that was starting to occur. 2017. The end of July, beginning of August, a change was beginning to occur in my soul. To I wasn't preferring the same things I did before because I was being trained by sisters. No, you ain't gonna get the same treatment. I was being trained to not look at them and not prefer them anymore. And I was being trained that way by the sisters themselves. I was getting to the point where, you know what? I don't want that 4C hair because because of what it means to her. It's a big deal to her, not to me. I don't want it though. I don't want that wide nose because of what it means to her. I don't want those big lips because of what it means to her. Still like that melanin count. Can't get over that, but I still won't. I'm still not going to go after a woman like that because of what it means to her. That's what I was going through. I wasn't the only one going through it. I guess what I'm saying here in this part four is that oftentimes the reason why it is that black men are going to look away from these same things in women that Austin Holloman says that we ought to already don't like, which I don't agree with. No, Austin, a lot of us had the same preferences you do, or at least we did at one point. And I'm not saying this with any hate. I don't agree with you though, Austin. Not on this. But this isn't any hatred or anything. But I'm telling you though, see, it is the sistren that are teaching us to not prefer these things that Austin thinks that we already don't want. Manosphere Hall of Fame thinks that a lot of brothers don't want that because he met men in life that really did not want these African traits in women. So that's his observation. He saw that. Where he grew up, that was the case. Where I grew up, there were guys like that, but they learned it from the moms. Single moms, usually. If I'm just going to be honest about it, that's where they learned it. The other thing I'm going to tell you is that brothers are learning these things from these women to not want them anymore. It's the women that are teaching the men to not want what you don't see brothers wanting anymore. It's been that way. Either mom tells that to her son, don't you bring home nobody that dark, and she'll be the same, she'll be looking the same way. Or it'll be the women out there that are teaching these men, I see myself this way because of these features of mine. I believe that they have a biological link to certain behaviors. Therefore, since I look this way, I'm going to act that way. And then these men say, I don't want that no more. I don't think that you look this way and therefore you have to act that way, but you do, so I don't want these looks either. And then on top of that, you get these other women that are coming with not only femininity, but showing interest in brothers when they're interested. Not all of them are, but when they are, they show it. You know, every Thai woman don't want a black man, but the ones that do will go and get that brother. Every Filipina ain't into brothers, but the ones that do will try to get that brother. I get it. Same with the Arab women. Every Arab woman don't want brothers, but the ones that do will try to get that brother. Sisters be wanting sisters that did want, well, we thought sisters wanted brothers, and they wouldn't do anything to get them. Turns out they don't even want brothers. The whole time they want Brad, and they'll settle for one of his lieutenants of white supremacy. And now you got these pro-black women sitting up here saying this dumb stuff. Well, what are you looking for? Don't be questioning these pro-black men. That's all you got left. Emma and the rest of you, you ain't got nothing left. We might be trying to wake them up, but since we have not been able to awaken them to certain facts, you should be grateful and you should be out there trying to snag them. Don't question them. Not about that. You don't need to question anything they do that shows their preference for the women of our own race. You need to be showing them that you are worth it. Because if we can't wake those men up, don't forget you still can wake them up accidentally. And that's what you're about to do, Emma. And since looks are so important and the difference between the East and the West African phenotypes are so important to the women of our race, let me point this out. Why is it that you, Emma Ansa, of what seems to be Bantu stock, maybe Nilotic, or a combination of the two, will sit up and question this man, whereas Wongal Zalalam from East Africa, with the East African phenotype, isn't doing this? If a black man that is successful goes and pursues Wongal Zalalam first and does not pursue you, you're going to sit up and call that man all kind of featurist, texturist, colorist, everything else, even though they're probably going to be more age appropriate for each other. You're going to do that. Congratulations, Emma, and others like her too, by the way. I'm not talking to just Emma, but the type that she represents. Congratulations. You are going to push further for what it is that you don't want. You are going to continue to train these younger men to understand that the blacker you are, the less interested you are in black men, and the worse your attitude is. And if they start tying that attitude to phenotype, it's going to be your fault, not theirs. I'm sorry this took so long, y'all. I really am. I realize this was a long Jet Black Air flight, but you know what? I really do appreciate y'all listening. Thanks for flying with us again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. And y'all give a big shout out to Senhor Canga for this, for making me aware of it. Thanks for flying with us here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.